Life begins when male and female meet and embrace. And the ruling class in any hierarchical society stands to gain from promiscuity and polygamy, both of which multiply the chances of the king or the powerful being handed on to the next generation. From monogamy, the rich and powerful lose, the poor and powerless gain. So the return of monogamy goes against the grain of normal social change and was a real triumph for the equal dignity of all. Every bride and every groom are royalty, every home a palace when furnished with love. What covenant did, and we see this in almost all the Hebrew prophets, was to understand that the relationship between us and God is like the relationship between bride and groom, wife and husband. Love thus became not only the basis of morality, but also of theology. In Judaism, faith is a marriage. There are some cultures that teach that we are nothing. There are other cultures that teach that we are everything. But the Jewish view is that we are half, and we need to open ourselves to another if we are to become whole. Science takes things apart to see how they work. Religion puts things together to see what they mean. And that is a very profound difference. And it seems to me that cultures are a bit like that. Does a given culture take things apart, or does it put things together? Now, what made the traditional family remarkable and a work of high religious art is what it brought together. It brought together sexual drive, physical desire, friendship, companionship, emotional kinship, and love, the begetting of children and their protection and care, their early education, their induction into an identity and a history. Seldom has any institution woven together so many different drives and desires, so many different roles and responsibilities. It made sense of the world and gave it a human face, the face of love. Almost everything that marriage once brought together has now been split apart. So sex has been divorced from love. Love has been divorced from commitment. Marriage has been separated from having children. And having children has been separated from responsibility for their care. This is creating a divide within societies, the like of which has not been seen since Benjamin Disraeli spoke about two nations a century and a half ago. Those who are privileged to grow up in stable, loving association with the two people who brought them into being will, on average, be healthier physically and emotionally. They will do better at school and at work. They will have more successful relationships. They will be happier and they will live longer. And yes, there are many exceptions. But the injustice of it all, the children who are deprived of these things, cries out to heaven. It will go down in history, the Western abandonment of marriage, as one of the tragic instances of what Friedrich Hayek called the fatal conceit, that somehow we know better than the wisdom of the ages and can defy the lessons of history. No one surely wants to go back to the narrow prejudices of the past, but our compassion for those who choose to live differently should not inhibit us from being advocates for the single most humanizing institution in history. As long as man thought he was immortal, he ultimately needed no one else. But now he knew he was mortal, he would one day die and return to dust. There was only one way in which something of him would live on after his death. That would be if he had a child. But he couldn't have a child on his own. For that, he needed his wife. She alone could give birth. She alone could mitigate his mortality. And not because she was like him, but precisely because she was unlike him. And at that moment, she ceased to be for him a type and became a person in her own right, and a person has a proper name, and that is what he gave her, the name Chava, Eve, the mother, the giver of life. And so it has been ever since, that when a man and woman turn to one another in a bond of faithfulness, God robes them in garments of light. And we come as close as we will ever get to God himself, bringing new life into being, turning the prose of biology into the poetry of the human spirit, and redeeming the darkness of the world by the radiance of love.